All right. Good to see you, man. So happy to have you. I'm thankful you participated. Um, Again, I'm Nelson Jones with Trafficking Insights, and this will be my second interview in a series of interviews I'm trying to do with survivors of trafficking and those that attempt to help them exit the lifestyle or raise awareness. I'm joined today by Andy Ledford, the leader of Operation Wolf Eyes. Andy, how you doing today?
Good, brother. How are you?
I'm great, fantastic. So tell us a little bit about Operation Wolf Eyes.
Well, Operation Wolf Eyes is one of those things that got created, I guess, out of the necessity of something that happens around you. And that's one of the key things that, one, in our hometown here in Canton, North Carolina, I got word. Well, actually, I didn't get word. I just happened to be in like one of the backwoods gas stations, and I happened to look down and I seen they call it a fuzz buzz, and it's one of the local little papers where people bust. Anybody that got busted, they flash their face all over their mug shots. And I happened to look down and I seen somebody had been arrested for human trafficking, and to me that was extremely weird considering we're in the backwoods of North Carolina and not in a city or anything like that. So I started doing the research and come to find out, one of my friends that I went to high school with actually did the bust. And after talking to him, I realized like this is pretty severe situation coming from a small town here in the mountains of North Carolina. And about 2 weeks after that, we had a 14-year-old that got snatched up at the local Dairy Queen. So I was like, something's not right here. So we ended up doing my research. And as I started digging, the hole just kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper, realizing that, state of North Carolina is ranked sixth in all the states for human trafficking. Um, so it's just one thing that led to another. Contacted friends in Homeland Security, ended up contacting the SBI and talking with them, and sat down and put everything to paper. And with my knowledge from my military career, just started making Operation Wolf Eyes in what
That's
it is
great.
now.
That's great. Yeah, North Carolina's quite the hot spot. Now I've never seen us ranked sixth. I typically see us ranked between eighth and 16. But still, I mean, that's alarming, you know. Um, I've heard we can
Right.
blame our interstates for that problem.
It is. Well, the reason why I said six is we jumped 185%
Oh wow.
because of COVID. So yeah, so with North Carolina during the COVID outbreak, the report I just read said we had an increase of 185% during the COVID time period. So I'm putting if we had an increase of 185%, I'm estimating that we're going to be around the sixth
Very
position.
interesting. I didn't know all that.
Yeah. So that's but you are right. I mean, it's North Carolina because of the highways. You've got Interstate 40 that goes from the East Coast, from Wilmington, all the way through to Tennessee. Then you've got 95, you got the 77, you got the 85, you've got 81 that runs on the outskirts of North Carolina in the mountains as well. That a lot of the smaller roads can be linked to as well. So the infrastructure that we have for highways is
Yeah,
unlimited.
yeah, yeah. Every time I go into like Charlotte or somewhere, I'm always kind of looking around, seeing if I notice anything. Um,
Yeah, Charlotte and Gastoniaville and that area is considered the
the
white
white
elephant.
elephant, in that
Yeah,
it sticks out.
that's that, that is the underbelly of all
Right,
sex
right,
trafficking right
right.
there.
Definitely. Um, so what is it exactly that Operation Wolf Eyes does?
Currently, right now we're in phase one. So we kind of broke it down into 3 to 4 phases, and we're actually transitioning into phase two. But phase one is where we are actually getting the information out there about one, who we are, and also about sex trafficking to people, where we do, talk to rallies. We get everything out there, get our brand out there, so people know who we are. The phase two portion is where we've stood up a cyber ops unit, and we are in the process of getting everything done with that. We have a small group that is working with us right now, of decoys, and I have a cyber director where she's been trained to know how to teach and train our decoys on how to not lure people into a conversation and stuff like that. But what we're doing different than anybody else is, we're actually putting everything in a bow and handing it over to a police department. We have no desire to actually make contact with anybody, put them on Facebook Live or anything like that. That's not our job. Our job is, one, if we can actually put our decoy into a chat room or our decoy on the internet, and someone approaches and then initiates a conversation with them, we record the conversation and then we turn it over to the police authorities. Our job is not to try to embarrass them and go after them like that or anything.
That's good. Very respectable. It's always great to just have the proper authorities handle matters like that, and it's awesome that y'all are being proactive about kind of investigating, if you will, and bringing that to their attention. Were you perhaps inspired a little bit maybe by Chris Hansen, To Catch a Predator? I love that show.
Believe it or not, I've never even seen the show. Until we got started with this, I had never seen the show. My last job in the Marine Corps was we ran a special op unit that our unit was the ones who actually went in Afghanistan and Iraq. We inserted cameras and sensors, and we tracked enemy movement. Well, whenever they shut down Afghanistan and Iraq, we no longer had anything to do. So we got permission to actually do this inside national forests along our border from California to Texas. And that's kind of what our unit kind of did. So that is actually what gave me my first insight to human trafficking, coming across the border before I retired from the Marine Corps. And watching and seeing, these large numbers coming in, it really made me wake up like, this is a problem coming into our United States. So that was my first exposure to that real activity of how the Coyotes did their stuff and bringing people back and forth.
Cool. I bet you learned a lot with that. Yeah, I seen a gentleman last weekend during my church's yard sale, and he came up to me. I had a table running where I had my merchandise and just odds and ends that I wanted to get rid of. And he said, yeah, I mean, I really respect what you're doing, and so on and so on. He said, it's awful what these foreigners are doing. It's awful what's going on in these other countries. And I'm like, dude, it ain't just happening in other countries. It's happening here. And go on.
No, you're right. I mean, it's happening here. We are the number one. We are the number one reason why this is going on. We are the biggest purchaser of it through the internet. We are the biggest purchaser, in person. It is out of control, and a lot of people don't realize that we are at a level now where drugs, you get a bigger sentence on drugs than you do for trafficking someone. So, these drug handlers where they were like, okay, well, I'm going to push drugs, they've now learned, well, I get 4 or 5 girls that work for me, and it's not a pimp. This is literally, you're taking control of someone's life, and you're forcing them into a sex trade that they don't want to be a part of. And you're making more money. If you get caught, you serve less time. And we've got to
they say that like human trafficking is very hard to prove. They say like a lot of, say, a survivor has a testimony. Well, in a lot of instances, unless they got like physical evidence or something recorded, they just consider that as hearsay. I think that's tragic. I think like authorities and law enforcement
Right.
really need to listen to survivors and believe them. Um,
Well, I think a lot of the issue is we don't have authorities that actually have the training. State of North Carolina is the perfect example. Um, with the SBI, you've only have one agent that handles all of
wow.
North Carolina. So you're telling me, we're ranked in the top 10, and we've got one agent that is controlling all of these cases. And the thing is, he has no control. He has to now work with the local authority that this tip or hotline came in, and that's the issue. And state of North Carolina has one sheriff's department that has stepped up and said, "Hey, this is an issue," and they've assigned one detective to be a human trafficking individual. That's his job inside the sheriff's department. One county out of all the counties
That's
in the state of
great.
North Carolina.
Which
It's
county is this?
absolutely just. I don't have my notes with me. I'm sitting in the truck. I don't have my notes with me, but there is. I will get that. I will get that to you. It's huge. It is the only county that they've actually set it in writing where this one sheriff's department has said, "Okay, we understand human trafficking is so big here in North Carolina that they've assigned that one detective. That is his main primary job. If we did that across the board, it'd be phenomenal." But perfect example is like Tennessee. Look at Tennessee. Tennessee has it broken down to 8 sectors, and for the SBI, for their state bureau of investigators, they've got 8 sectors broken up across the state. And Tennessee and North Carolina, if you put them on map to map, they're almost identical and linked in the whole 9 yards. They've broken it down into 8 sectors and have 3 agents with SBI per sector dealing with
Wow.
human trafficking. We're talking, it's, so many more like eyes on the point of what's going on. And if this is such a huge issue, why haven't we changed it? Why hasn't people been pushing for change? And it's simple. And don't get me wrong, we're in the Bible Belt state. I understand that, and it's taboo to even talk about kind of things like this. I left 20-something years ago thinking, all right, well, the South has got to change. I returned back to North Carolina about 2.5 years ago, and I thought, well, hey, we've got to be out of the 80s by now. So let's step it up. And we have graduated from the 80s, but we're still back in the mid 90s mind frame as far as the eras that we're going. And going around and traveling around the world and stuff, you've got to realize that we are still so far behind because we don't want to communicate about some of the subjects
Mm-hmm.
that are out there, and we have to
Definitely,
talk about them.
definitely. I'm running a flyer campaign now, and I'll have a lot of businesses say, "Yeah, I'll display your flyer." I go by the next day, "Where is it?" Uh, I have to hang my flyers
Yeah,
up at the park every single day. Every single day when I come, they're took down, and it's like, yeah. I mean, I guess it does disturb some people, but hey, it's reality, and I mean, you got to pay
yeah.
attention to it, or it's just going to continue to go on.
And that's the reason why it's been allowed to, is because no one wants to talk about this subject. If you talk to I'm 40, getting ready to be 46. Anybody that's about 50 years old or older, they do not want. This is what I'm seeing. You got a complete two friggin' sides of this. Anybody over the age of 50, they are so shocked and hurt by the thought process of it. They dive in so head first that they're so energetic to try to help resolve it. And then the other half is, this isn't real. Why
Yeah.
are we talking about it? And there's no in between. It's either I am so gung ho running out the door to do everything for you, or it's not real. I'm not going to talk to you about this. There's and then you get our generation, around their mid 30s, mid 40s, who are they're on the fence, because I feel like that was where the political agenda kind of hit really hard with our generation is, well, are you extreme left wing or are you extreme right wing? And you're being brainwashed by one side to the other. And so that side is still looking at it, well, you're in a conspiracy world. This isn't real. And then when you start getting to the younger generations who are seeing it now because this is a more technology battle ground, they're like, oh yeah, I seen that. I seen this happening in Roblox, or I seen this happening on Snapchat, or I see, in the different generations that's hitting it in a different concept where, I talk to a lot of younger people and they're like, oh, so that's what they were doing. Whenever I start explaining what grooming is, and it's no longer like whenever I was growing up, stranger danger, where you go to the mall and all of a sudden your kid is snatched up
Right.
and they disappear. What ends up happening now is your kid is being groomed online and on social media, and once they find out where the kid lives, hey, I'll be there in 10 minutes. The kid is
Yep.
walking out your house and getting in the van freely. There is no, my kid is getting snatched up. They are walking out the door, and they think, oh, this is a good person.
Mm-hmm.
I know this person, and that's where one of the multiple things. Perfect example out of Louisiana. There's a 10-year-old girl who had been approached through social media by a 20-year-old. They spoke for several months. Gentleman said, okay, hey, I'm going to come by and get you. She gave him his address and gave him her address. She goes and she gets in the car at 8 o'clock at night. Parents discover what's going on, call the police. By the time the police actually located this girl and busted through his door, they found them in bed together, and he confesses to all the sexual acts that they'd done. This is a 10-year-old girl that was groomed by this guy for months on social media. And people don't understand. It's no longer outside. This
Yes.
is in your house. This is the battle.
Yeah, sickening, man. And yeah, like the media and so many people, they think of human trafficking as kidnapping and chains and taking people overseas, and that's
Right.
just not how it happens. Grooming is really the major driving force behind the epidemic.
Correct. Anybody who is on this is one of the things I try to explain to people. If you've got somebody that, let's say a perfect example, let's say you've got a girl that she's lost everything, and a guy says, hey, I'll let you come over to my house and spend the night for the night, but you got to have sex with me. So it's either I live on the streets and worry about me living on the streets and being in danger, or I go to this guy's house to have sex so I can live under a roof and be somewhat protective.
Yes.
That's human trafficking. You are swapping an act for an act, and you as the guy is controlling the situation, and you're taking advantage of it. And that's one of the things that people don't realize. That is a form of human trafficking.
Yeah. I mean, anytime that any sort of service or goods are exchanged, I would definitely say so. So are there any specific incidents, without going into too many personal details or names or anything like that, that you've uncovered through Operation Wolf Eyes that stick out to you?
So one of the, we did have one where, well, we've had several. We've had one where, we had a case where the mother was actually trafficking her daughter. And again, you don't think of it in the kind of happening, but it was. The mother had a drug problem, using her daughter to actually pay for her drugs, and doing it. CPS didn't want to get involved. We had to get the police had to be brought in to get involved with it. Then CPS finally did get involved with it. We had another case where actual runner for a cartel out of Atlanta, and she gave us a bunch of information. She was worried about her 6-year-old son because people were breaking in through her floor of her house and her trailer to her 6-year-old son's bedroom, and which finally that was kind of what broke the camel's back, and we got a lot of information on that. Was able to get her out of that situation. We had another one out of South Carolina where a boy and a girl, a sister and a brother, was in a situation where things were going sideways. only reason why we ended up getting a hold of this case was the girl called her sister in Colorado and actually said, how could I kill myself? And that sent fireworks all the way across. Somebody through the network, somebody contacted us, and we were able to get help to them. And not only that, but I mean, we do domestic
I
violence
noticed,
cases as well. I hate to say we've had way more domestic violence cases than we have probably
of course.
human trafficking cases. But um, as we're standing up right now, we have 3 cyber cases that we have under right now that we're putting everything together for the police department. One of them, everything has been turned into the police, and NCIS is involved, CID is involved as well. So this one's going to be a pretty lengthy, process for his case. But this gentleman has been arrested, but again, it's not went to court, it's not went to trial, so we've not been able to actually broadcast, hey, this is, in fact, everything that's out there for this one case. The other 2 cases are still ongoing as well. Our domestic violence, I mean, that has been one of the ones that we've probably done more nationwide than anything. We have been doing human trafficking. People send us human trafficking all the time. And what we've done is we've kind of created a network chart of other teams in other states that is kind of doing what we're doing. And we link them up with them because until we are completely up and funded, it's very hard for me to send a team out to another state or anything like that. So we rely on a lot of the other agencies that are out there, which is starting to become less and less. I know of 3 other agencies in North Carolina who I kind of talked to in the beginning when we stood up have closed their doors. They relied heavily on donations from the church and other organizations. And when COVID hit, they couldn't get the funding they needed anymore and ended up having to close their doors. So that's where we've been kind of blessed in a way. Whenever I started Operation Wolf Eyes Up, we kind of started with a clothing line, like a shirt line and stuff like
My
that.
kind of guy.
And my biggest thing is I don't, yeah. So, and that's where, it's hard for me to actually stick my hand out and go, gimme, 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 gimme. I would much rather if you hand me $25, I
Right.
send you a shirt in return. Granted, I'm not making that much, but at least you don't walk away feeling like, what did I just give to? And that's one of the big things why I've always pushed our clothing line. Now, I will tell you something that we went to Vegas. We kind of went on TikTok, and I didn't expect to blow up like we did on TikTok. And because of TikTok, we went from Western North Carolina to nationwide. And so one of the big things, whenever I went out to Vegas for the Vegas invasion, I wanted to see how we could bring that back to here. And so what we're actually doing is we're hosting an event October 1st to the 2nd. Granted, it is $100 a ticket, but whenever I tell people, like, look, you get an evening where we are busing to a brewery, a local brewery. You don't have to drive. And then the next evening, you get a meet and greet lunch. And then a DJ Kyle from the area, who's like a really big DJ here, is coming out doing a big light show, a big DJ show. And you think about that, you get a lanyard, you get a shirt, a limited edition shirt, and everything else. What's $100 whenever you really think you're getting
Yeah, all
all
of that and benefiting a great
and
cause. That sounds like an amazing event,
exactly.
and I really hope that I can attend that. I'm going to do my best to be there.
We'd love to have you, bro. We'd love to have you. But that's where, if you think about it, there's 1,600. There's 1,600 tickets that are available. I think we've sold maybe 100 and something so far. But the extra revenue that is going to go through that is actually going into our second part of phase 2 is going to be our after school program, which is where we're going to open a center here with gymnastics, tumbling and trampoline, and all-star cheer team, and a CrossFit and powerlifting gym. So with that, we're hitting everyone so that way they can actually see what we're doing and how we're doing it. But we're also educating kids and parents of who we are and why we are who we are. So that's where, that age group, especially with girls, and I'm not excluding boys and stuff like that, but the bigger, if you look at the stats, your biggest
Of
target
course.
is going to be females. So if I'm able to educate parents and grandparents, hey, this is what because our platform is social media. And if I'm able to actually educate someone that this is going on in social media, so they can be more educated when their kids are involved, but also at the same time, giving their kids a mentorship program to where they say, okay, I had someone do this to me, or I had someone trying to do this. They knew what the signs were, and they knew like a positive reinforcement of what
Yeah,
what's out there.
dude, I mean, that's just incredible. And you get that after school thing funded, and there you go. That's less kids on the technology, more kids getting involved and forging
Right,
relationships in the community, getting some healthy habits behind them. That's a great initiative. Phenomenal.
right. And this is one of the programs what we want to do. So we actually have a organization called Human Trafficking Rescue Inc. They are out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and they've reached out to us. What they want to do is in April, they want to do an old Jerry Lee Lewis telethon. They've got it all set up, and we're going to bring in the performers like bands and comedians and stuff like that. We're going to do a 6-hour broadcast for fundraising with all this talent, and it's going to be broadcast to 190 countries, if I remember correctly. And like I said, it'll be 6 hours, and then the 3 organizations that's come on board with me, this 2
I'm
other
making
small
notes here.
organizations as well. Uh,
Uh,
oh yeah. So, well, actually, I mean, they spoke to. I told them to go speak to Shield,
huh.
North Carolina as well, and Shield, North Carolina is like, look, our calendar is cram packed. This is just something we can't do. So I knew of 2 other small nonprofits who I said, hey, these are 2 nonprofits that could probably benefit from this fundraiser. And they were like, let's go do it. And so they reached out, talked to them, and so there'll be 3 of us all together. And what they're going to do is they're going to cut a portion of the funds raised and give out to the smaller nonprofits like us, and to be able to help
That's
explode us
great.
off the
What
ground.
are the other 2 nonprofits that are going to be involved?
Beloved Haven is one of them. I'm not sure. I've got it in an email somewhere with where the other one is. But Beloved Haven is just south of the Virginia border. They were about mid-state down, and they kind of had to relocate a little bit further north, just below Virginia, so they could kind of get funding from Virginia and North Carolina to even keep their doors open.
Wow. Well, it's good that all these organizations are still hanging in there and going strong. And wow, what a
Yeah.
fantastic event both of those will be. Rewinding a little bit, talk about you do the work with domestic violence, and domestic violence can often mask human trafficking. I have a support
Yeah.
group that I attend on Tuesday nights, and a lady in my support group had expressed some concern because one of her friends is currently a stripper, and all of a sudden her fiance had encouraged her to start performing for men out of their home. And there was some domestic violence involved in that situation.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, domestic
Yeah.
violence, drugs, all that stuff. You see any of that going on, 9 times out of 10, there's going to be some human trafficking in the midst.
Right. Yeah. You hit it right on the head. That's why we kind of incorporated domestic violence in with our mission statement, is because, and I'd say close to 65% of the cases that whenever we were going through the process of forming Operation Wolf Eyes, either drugs or domestic violence was involved. And one of the key things I felt, we couldn't focus on drugs as an issue by itself. And so that's one of the reasons why we didn't include that as part of our mission statement. But I felt like the domestic violence side, again, is still a taboo subject that no one wants to talk about that's happening behind closed doors. So for me to take on both at the same time, I felt they were both hand in hand. So whether I'm talking about human trafficking or domestic violence, these are still two things that go behind closed doors that people don't want to talk about. They don't want to see it. They don't want to know that the preacher down the road is slapping around his wife. They don't want to know that the high school coach is coming on the little girls or boys or whatever. And it's one of those things that if you start talking about this stuff, it's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
now this is real. That person that you thought was a really good person, he's not so
Right.
good after all. And that's one of the things. And I'm not saying you need to target your local preacher or your local coach. I'm just saying those are the kind of figureheads that are inside the community that people think they know, and
Yeah.
they really
Yeah.
don't.
I mean, really, anybody can be involved in this sort of thing. And, so many people are quick to hide behind a reputation and then be a whole other person in their private life.
Right. Yeah. There's matter of fact, there's a young lady she's out of the Mennonite community. I can't say her name. She's actually writing the book on it right now. She and I ended up getting linked up together, and she was basically abused sexually and everything else by her father in a house full of kids, and she was basically targeted, and it was allowed. It was allowed by the mother all the way through. He was a doctor, so he didn't live like the rest of the Mennonites, but he hid inside the Mennonite community. And almost, I would say, close to 20 years ago, we went through that area. Now, me and this young lady was talking, and I literally described her house to her and told her exactly what her house looked like down to the shutters. The reason why is because she lived across from a game resort place, and we remember it. I remember making a comment, and there was one house right across the street that was out of place. 20 years ago, she was 13 years old while this was going on, and I literally was outside her house. And to think about it in the concept that 20 years later, she and I be connected talking about this times of the abuse that she was dealt with, the sexual assaults and stuff like that, is absolutely crazy. To think that was, I'm standing in front of this house and that's going on behind the closed doors. And it's all the way across,
Wow. What a
America.
story. That's cool. I mean, not cool, but you know what I mean. Um,
Right. No,
yeah.
I get what you said.
I like to travel down to, I won't say names, so I won't even say where, but, just for privacy, because I'm certainly not jumping any accusations on anybody. But I have a friend somewhere in North Carolina, and he used to stay in a house, and there would be a lot of drug activity in that house and people in and out. But one thing that was alarming to me was the amount of use inside of that house, and they would just come and go. Um, Babies running around in diapers and stuff. I don't know. Good family with a drug problem or a child trafficking hotspot. Who knows?
Right.
Um,
See, and that's one of the things what we hope to actually start. My end goal in phase 4 is to have 6-man team set in place where anybody gives us a hotline tip, then we go in, we put a team on it, we investigate. So that way, when we put everything together, we can hand it over to the police department and say, look, here's credible information on this part. What we would like to do is become credible enough where the SBI goes, I've got 100 leads. Can you chase them down? And because right now, one of the biggest reasons why no one's doing anything is no one has the manpower or the funding to chase down these leads. If you get 100 leads, 3 are probably good. If you can have a team that's willing to be volunteers, but I'm going to have my team paid, but it'll be through, our 501(c), The third job is to go out, hunt, and seek and uncover these pipe holes and give back the good intelligence. Be like, I would look into this area right here. This is credible information, and that's our ultimate goal. Is what we want to be able to do is create a team that in the state of North Carolina, we get a lead, we go in it, we sit on it, find it and figure it out, get it back to the authorities, and be like, this is credible information.
Great initiative, and you know, I'm interested in participating in that whenever you pick it up. Awesome.
Good.
So outside of yourself and Operation Wolf Eyes, or even inside of Operation Wolf Eyes, maybe someone who's doing some great work for you. Is there anybody else's efforts that really stick out to you or that you'd like to highlight?
So well, right now our biggest, you know, is Ron. He is the chairman with Human Trafficking Rescue. His insight and his knowledge of what he's wanting to do and grow. He kind of has the same passion that I do, and he, you know, he's battled cancer. I think he's going through like chemo 43 times. He's still standing and kicking. But his ultimate goal is to do this telethon to raise the funds needed to fight this. And his biggest thing was, you know, before I die, I want to see this telethon be done to where I know we are in the right direction to take control of North Carolina again. And so his passion, like mine, is through the roof in the concept. But there's so many people that's out there. I mean, I'll tell you, my secretary that I have for our nonprofit, she's my ride and die. I mean, I can think up some of the craziest things, and I know I should be talked off the ledge on half the stuff that I'm thinking, but she buckles in and she's like, let's do this. So, you know, I'm blessed to have her on my board with me, along with my other, you know, Blake, my other one. He's kind of my spiritual guidance whenever I start getting frustrated and stuff like that. But, you know, I've been blessed with having people come into my life where every time where I felt that we were doing the wrong thing, someone or something was always pushed in our direction saying, you're doing the right thing. So that's we've been blessed in that direction every time. So I can't say there's one, you know, person that sticks out more than the other. We've had people come into our lives that we never thought would come in. You know, Miss East Coast, Shar has been one of the biggest inspirational lights for us, to where her story alone has caused me to even dive even, you know, harder into the domestic violence side, along with the, you know, trafficking and grooming side. So everyone has a little piece that kind of pushed us to be even more.
Right, definitely. Everybody can play a part in the movement. Are you familiar with Project No Rest? Really?
No,
I'm shocked. They are. I first noticed them way back in around the time of the 2016 election. There were some ad campaigns on. At this time, if I remember correctly, they centered their efforts on both adults and children, adults and missing children, and it's really about trafficking, not so much missing children, but, you know, missing people are vulnerable and potentially victims. So that was kind of where I began my efforts. I held a sign promoting them, but it's a great one.
Not to cut you off, but if I lose you, if you reconnect me, I'm having to get on the road now to get to.
Oh, you're good.
But if I lose you, but if I lose you, just reconnect me. I'll be back in the cell service. I just don't know my.
Well, we can go ahead and wrap it up if you want to. Okay. Well, man, it's been great talking with you. Awesome to learn more about you. I wish you all the best luck with all of your efforts. I hope the fundraiser's a great success. I hope the telethon's a great success. And I look forward to more communication and collaboration with you in the future, man.
Dude, I appreciate it. I love talking to you. Anytime you want to talk.
Awesome. Hey, you have a great day and keep up the good fight, man. Later.
All right, man. You too.